Welcome. My name's Dimitri and this is Bridget. Today we just want to talk about a few different subjects to see if we can offer any help for you. And my videos are a tool that you can use to help you in any way that you can. Primarily they're a relaxation-based tool for you, but they also sometimes have like hypnosis, and sometimes in my hypnosis I'll try and help boost confidence, reduce anxiety and things like that. And that's something that I really enjoy giving to people and to help people. And sometimes I also try and give tools on what I think is something that you can use to help. So today we're going to try and talk about a few subjects. So the first subject we're going to talk about is self-love. And I guess it's a strange subject to try and talk about. And for me, I'm not really sure how to approach it in the best way. So I'm going to hand it over to Bridget and let her try and give you her explanation on self-love. And so just a little quick bit before we go into it is self-love could also be part of being selfish. And being selfish in certain scenarios is actually good for you. And, you should take care of yourself. And, you don't have to put everyone else first. You can put yourself first, and you shouldn't feel guilty or bad about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Dimitri. I think that's a really good point to start on about how we take care of ourselves. And I think at a core level, self-love is very much about being in deep connection with ourselves so we can actually listen to what our own needs are and then feel confident to assert that in the world through the choices that we're making and how we're going about living our lives. So obviously, it's you mentioned selfishness, and I think selfishness is if we are meeting our own needs all the time. And I think it's really a lot about balance, because we live in relationship with each other. So how do we meet our own needs and those of our loved ones or the important people in our life? And I think balance is very important in that. But to kind of know how to move within that process where we can honour ourselves and also be there for another, I think it's very important that we can actually listen to ourselves and hear our own needs, because often we can hear the needs of others, or we're certainly being told from others, close to us, what it is that they need. But how can we hear our own needs so we can also honour ourselves? Because when we don't, the consequences can be really negative. If we're not listening to ourselves and what it is that we need, then eventually there is a really negative impact on our lives, which may be in the form of illness or a relationship breakdown or stress, just not being able to handle a job because we don't have that skill.
Okay, so this area is, I'm going to sort of focus on something that that I can try and offer. But it's important, as an example, to take care of yourself. So a mother has a baby. The mother will put all of her focus on that baby. And that's a perfectly normal situation. And my point is that as that child gets older and older, the mother doesn't have to spend 100% of her time taking care of that child. The child can take care of itself in some areas. It can put its own clothes on. It can get a drink of water. It can do stuff. And so the mother shouldn't, or it's not up for me to say that. The mother should, sorry, I shouldn't say that word should, the mother could spend some time to take care of herself, which might be going to get a haircut, doing something relaxing, spending some time with some friends, whatever it is that allows that person to give themselves some self-love. I guess that's one way for me to put it, which is a very practical, easy to understand way, in that, you need to spend some time to take care of yourself. And I think it's important to understand when it is that you might need to do that. I think it's about having the knowledge and the awareness of the certain situation you might be in, and to maybe just step back and to see that you need to take care of yourself. And so if you're in a certain situation, and there's lots of different situations, I think it's important to try and, instead of focusing to fix a certain situation, is to maybe try and step back and sort of take care of yourself, whether it's just a matter of going for a walk outside in a park, going to see a friend or something. So that's my little thing, which...
Sure. No, I think that's really great what you shared, and I think something I'd just add to that, leading on from the discussion we had before, the ability to listen to our own needs is not always an easy thing, because if we've been taught or conditioned, and a lot of, sort of the religious beliefs as well can teach us that's not a good thing to listen to our own needs. So in the first place, it can actually be hard sometimes for us to hear, what is it that I am feeling, or what is it that I need? So developing that skill in itself, I think, is very important. And the other point that I wanted to make was about, as you said, sometimes we need to just step back, but which I think is true. And then other times I think we need to communicate. Once we know what that need is, we need to communicate that in an empowered way to the people involved or our loved ones, so we can care for ourselves by saying, listen, I'm really not coping here. I really need some time for myself. I need to take a break. Can you support me in this? So the communication factor, I think, is a big thing.
Communication is always a very, very big thing. Being able to communicate how you might be feeling. So, I need a drink of water. I need to go to the toilet. It's very simple things to communicate. I am not feeling very well, not as in a physically cold virus or flu type thing, but, you might be in a situation where you're not feeling very well and you want to talk to someone. So just communicating how you're feeling to someone else that cares about you is a way for you to get some self-love, I think. I think it's important what Bridget just said. It's a really important skill is to learn to listen to your body. And I guess you'd also have to listen to your minds and your thoughts as well. So your body is one thing where you might get an onset of a cold, and if you have a drink of lemon and honey, it might reduce the effect of the cold, where if you let it go, it might last a week. Whereas if you're having certain thoughts, or you keep having certain thoughts and it's a problem, then you need to take care of yourself, and you need to sort of do whatever you need to do that. If you try and bottle it up and hold on to it, that's when things get worse. But if you realise that, you're in a situation and it's causing you a problem, then be aware of this fact and do something about it, instead of just saying the typical Aussie male is, she'll be right, it'll fix itself up. But a lot of these things don't fix themselves up. You really need to address it. So being aware of when there's a potential problem, you need to do something about it. So if it's like a physical cold, or you get a cut, if you get a cut, it's normal that you clean it, you get a Band-Aid so it doesn't get infected. But if you're having thoughts of, let's just say, depression, depressing thoughts, which is something everyone goes through at some stage of their life. If these depressing thoughts are really becoming a problem, you need to be aware of it becoming a problem and talk to someone about it. Talking about your problems, I think, is probably one of the better things to do to help.
Well, yeah, what I'd like to add to what you've just shared as well is often depression can come from, you'll often hear people say depression is anger turned inward. So often we can reach the depressive state because we haven't listened to our feelings that have been trying to communicate to us our needs, have been trying to get us to love ourselves. So when we ignore that and ignore it, then it can reach a stage of depression. So you mentioned about listening to your body and your mind. And what I'd like to add to that as well, which I think is our feeling sense is very powerful and is a big way in which I would say like our spirit or our soul communicates to us to protect us or guide us on our journey of self-love. So often if you're in a situation that's not a good situation for you, I know for myself, and I think with many people, you can get, I get like a feeling in my body that something's not right. So by honouring that feeling and listening to it, and whether that means I need to speak my needs, whether that means I need to say no, whether that means I need to remove myself from a situation, or if something I'm doing or a relationship is not healthy, then that's something I have to acknowledge by listening to that very strong feeling that's coming in my awareness. So I think that our feeling sense, or it might be different for you. There's different ways in which our body, mind, spirit is communicating to us in trying to get us to listen, so we can love ourselves and become more whole and healthy and balanced.
So listen to your instinct, I guess, is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, that's right.
But don't ever beat yourself up if you make a decision in a certain situation and it is wrong or it doesn't work out best. These things happen. And try and learn from your mistakes. And if you make the mistake a second time, take note and try not to let it happen again, because it happens to me. And I guess if you're listening to your instincts, for me, I try and listen to my instincts. And if I make a decision, I'll try and commit to that decision, unless I think that there's something wrong, and I'll try and back out of it. If you commit to something, you should commit to something, but if something's not right, pull out, back away. Don't be afraid to back away. It's no real problem or drama. It's like for me, when I was young, calculating the risk of doing something risky, and you calculate the risk, and you think, if something goes wrong, it goes wrong. But if I do this, and this, I'll have a low chance of it going wrong. And, I try and look at things a little bit in that way, that if I'm going to do something, I try and assess the risks. And, if something goes wrong, it's not going to be unexpected. I was expecting the possibility for something to go wrong. And, sometimes you get hurt, sometimes you fall over. I'm talking about doing risky things. For example, jumping off something into something. You assess the risk. If you land there, you're in trouble. You land there, you're in trouble. You land here, you're in trouble. You make sure you land here. And so as long as you get so much movement going over here, you've got a pretty good chance of landing there. And so, you try and assess the situation and work out where your risks are. And have I just gone totally off topic?
No, that's all right, because we're talking about self-love and how, I guess in some senses, how you protect yourself or make decisions.
Your instinct on making a decision. So, you need to assess the risk of the decision that you're making.
Exactly, because I think what I gather as well that you're saying it's not, and that's when you said to me instincts, and I was a little bit like, it's not, I don't know if instincts is quite the right word, because it's not just about always following our instincts, because sometimes our instincts are impulsive and aren't necessarily self-loving for us.
Definitely true.
So I think that's as well what you were trying to say about the risk assessment.
The male in me just...
But I think what I was talking about, the feeling sense, there's something... it's like your soul does have a way of communicating to you if you are not being self-loving. And for some people that might be through illness, the body. For me, I know I get very strong feelings, if something's not right. But the instinct, it can be a little bit different. But I guess for people to find out how does my soul communicate to me to tell me I'm not being self-loving, and to start to, if you're not, to start to really listen to that and work out what it is that you need, what are those decisions you need to make in your life and relationships. Do you need to remove yourself from certain situations? Do you need to communicate your needs more clearly? What is it that you need for yourself?
For the, sorry, I'm being a little bit general here, but for the guys, I'm really asking you to try to talk about certain subjects, to communicate your feelings to someone if you need to. I understand the anxiety or you might be a little bit scared to do it. But once you do something like that, you'll probably feel a much greater relief, and you'll probably be happier afterwards if you communicate your feelings about a situation to someone that's important to you. Because, for me, I don't want to communicate my feelings very often, but sometimes you have to do it. And, as guys, we're kind of brought up to be, in Australia anyway, to not really share our feelings that much, It's like we go around to our mate's place, we have a couple of beers, how's it going? Yeah, everything's all right. Went down to the beach the other day, blah, blah, blah. There's not much discussion about feelings of value that I guess would help if you're in a certain situation where you need a little bit of self-love. I'm not the best person to talk about this. I think Bridget should be the one.
No, you're doing really well. You're doing really well. But
see, this is me communicating my feelings. I'm like,
You're doing so. But that's exactly right. The point that you bring up, I guess, being male, firstly, and not being so accustomed to that. And I think, for all of us in a sense, but even particularly for males, there can be a lot of shame attached to sharing, feelings of vulnerability, fears, insecurities. And so I think this shame factor is a really big thing for everybody, and that keeps a lot of the time keeps us holding it all inside, because we think it's shameful to share our vulnerability.
Yeah, so it's very normal for me to hold things inside, mostly when I was younger. And I think it's common in a lot of males that they hold certain things inside that aren't that good for them. So, for self-love, the subject that we're trying to talk about, it would be self-loving to yourself as a male. This is just talking about the male, what we're talking about. To talk to someone, to try and help if you're not feeling very good, in whatever situation it might be. Don't be scared to do it. You'd probably be surprised that your friends would be very receptive, and probably it's something that would build a friendship stronger by talking to someone like this. Don't be afraid to talk to someone. I guess you don't want to just talk to anyone, or, you could even find a stranger in the street to talk to a subject like this. And that might be even easier, because once you leave that person, at least you've started the talking and you've at least made that step forward to help yourself. And then, go talk to a friend, a family member, someone that you're close to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So self-love and communication. So communication is a form of self-love.
Well, honest communication, I guess a lot of conflict arises, in relationship through miscommunication or blaming, the other. You did this, or you make me feel like this, when ultimately they're our feelings. They belong to each individual. So a very powerful way to communicate is, I feel, or when this happened, I felt like this. and then that opens a space for a much more fluid and connected space for each person to be heard. Because as soon as you start saying, you made me feel like this, you did this to me, then naturally our defenses go up. And there's a block there between being able to understand what is going on for the other person.
So what she's saying is basically an extremely important thing, and I can't stress this enough, that the word you should be removed from your vocabulary. And I'm serious, because it's very hard to blame someone else without using the word you. And so if you remove the word you from your vocabulary, it's very difficult to do. It removes that tool to start blaming someone. Blaming someone, even if they did something wrong, is something I would recommend that you never do. Try and avoid blaming anybody for anything. And this is a big step forward in reducing conflict in relationships, I think.
Yeah, look, obviously when we get wounded, it's natural to feel blame, to feel anger towards, whoever we perceive caused that harm to us. So I think it's a natural emotion to feel, and it's a natural to want to put that energy back out, but it does perpetuate the negativity, and I think it works against the goal of achieving self-love. So it can be a very, very, depending on, what the wound is and how severe it is, it can be a huge challenge not to blame. But I think it's important, and it might not be something that we're able to achieve immediately. It might take a very long time. But I think if we can have that intention and objective to reach a place where we're not blaming, then that enables us a lot more self-love, because blame essentially is negative energy that harms both ourselves and then the person that we're directing it towards.
Yeah. Blaming is something that even to this day I still try and remove from my part of my life. It's a very difficult thing. We're sort of grown up to blaming it, and and then when I was young, people started suing people. I remember hearing about this in the news because of stuff, and I guess it's like blaming. Well, you didn't do this, so now this happened to me, so now you are going to have to pay. And when I was a kid, that was a really strange concept for me to sort of understand, but it's become normal. And so I strongly ask you all to actually try to not blame people, even if they did something wrong, even if they dropped a piece of cake on the floor and it was that cake that was for you. You don't say, oh, you did that or something like that. Say, I'm sorry that I didn't get it myself or something like that. Don't lay the blame on them. They're probably already going to feel bad enough. It could have been nice cake. But yeah, just start with simple things like that don't have much effect. It's just a piece of cake, who cares? But, it's just nice not to blame someone.
Well, in that situation, like you're saying, it would be more self-loving to say, wow, I feel disappointed I didn't get to eat that, and then that's just your feeling, but I'm not directing any negative energy towards you for dropping the cake.
Yeah, it's important not to direct that negative energy. It's like, when you're driving along and someone cuts in front of you, you already start blaming them. But is it possible that they made a mistake and that they didn't do it on purpose? So there's no need to blame someone for making a mistake. Just avoid the anger associated with blaming people, because it just doesn't really benefit anybody. So what's the moral of the story?
The moral of the story. Well, I think in conclusion, some of the points that we've discussed today about how you can be more self-loving is by tuning into what your own needs are, finding the way in which your soul communicates to you its needs, and then honouring those needs by making decisions aligned with that, or communicating those needs and your feelings when it's appropriate from a place of authenticity and self-responsibility rather than blame.
Yeah, take care of yourself. You don't have to focus all of your time onto something else. And communicate, and don't blame. And be aware of, if you cut yourself, you clean it, you put a Band-Aid on. If there's something going on with you that needs to be fixed, is it as simple as just going to someone and talking about it, if you've got the right person to talk to? And, try and take care of yourself and see yourself as like a bigger picture of, you've got your physical aspect, you've also got your mental aspect. And the mental aspect, I think, is very neglected in our current Western societies. And, take care of yourself. That's the subject.
That's right. I think what you're saying about the mental aspect, it's acceptable if we're suffering some kind of physical illness, to not be able to go to work or whatever. But if we're suffering from depression or anxiety or phobias or mental health issues, then it's, I think, again, bringing back that word shame, I think is important, that there is a shame element attached to that. And I don't think as a society we feel so comfortable to call out work and say, yeah, I feel terrible mentally, I can't get out of bed, or even to say that to our friends or even to a family. So I guess the mental aspect is of self-love around that is not making that wrong if you're struggling on that level, on the mental level. It's just another level of aspect of our being, like the physical. And there is nothing wrong with us, essentially, if we're struggling on that mental level. And it's very important, to communicate and seek help, because it can be very lonely. And the nature of a lot of mental illness is we do need to share, we need to communicate, we need to feel supported by another, and break out of that shame aspect.
All right, to finish it off. What do you need to make that thing ring?
You can just use one of the mallets, the smaller one.
Trust me. Bridget's going to let this ring. Just close your eyes and just listen to this. In person, this thing sounds really, really nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dimitri.